Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the architectural journey of the Philippine basic education system. If you've been tracking global education metrics, you probably know the Philippines has been in the middle of a massive, multi-decade structural overhaul to fix a very real national learning crisis. We're going to navigate exactly how this system was dismantled, expanded, and is now being refined to build a truly resilient foundation for millions of students.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap. We're going from the incomplete foundation to building K-12. Then we'll look at the friction and crises, the metotic course correction, what a decongested curriculum actually means, and finally, the blueprint ahead.
Starting with Section 1, the incomplete foundation of the pre-K-12 architecture.
So picture the Philippine education system before 2010 as a house built on a totally incomplete foundation. Seriously, the reality was stark. The Philippines was a massive outlier. In fact, it was literally one of only 3 countries in the entire world, alongside Angola and Djibouti, that was still sticking to a 10-year basic education cycle. The rest of the globe, they had long moved on to a 12-year standard. Because of that missing foundational block, Filipino professionals were put at a massive global disadvantage. We're talking having their degrees downgraded when applying for jobs or grad school abroad, just because they were short those 2 standard years.
The day-to-day impact of that shorter cycle was severe. It created what became known as the squeeze. Imagine trying to force 12 years' worth of heavy science, math, and language competencies into just 10 years. The result? Rushed, superficial instruction. Teachers had to practically sprint through the material, meaning students just couldn't absorb it all. Plus, it created this wild labor market mismatch. Kids were graduating high school at 16 years old. They had no technical specialization, and frankly, they were legally too young to even enter the formal workforce.
Which brings us to Section 2, building the K-12 expansion.
It became incredibly clear that a huge structural expansion was needed. The country needed a larger, sturdier house. But you can't build that overnight, right? It had to be a phased construction project. It really kicked off with a presidential pivot back in 2010 to prioritize basic education. Then, by 2011 and 2012, public kindergarten became a mandatory entry point for grade 1. The big legal milestone hit in 2013 with the enactment of Republic Act 15033. That law officially institutionalized the 1642 structure. That means 1 year of kinder, 6 years of elementary, 4 of junior high, and 2 of the brand new senior high school. By 2016, senior high school rolled out nationwide, and finally, in 2018, the system celebrated its very first full batch of K-12 graduates.
Now, this massive new architecture was held up by 3 main weight-bearing pillars. First up, mother tongue-based multilingual education. The idea here was that from kinder to grade 3, teaching in native regional languages would really ease the cognitive transition for young kids. The second pillar was the spiral progression approach. Instead of just taking biology 1 year and chemistry the next, math and science concepts were integrated and revisited every single year, getting a little more complex each time. And the third pillar? A learner-centered paradigm. This was a total shift away from old-school rote memorization, aiming instead to cultivate actual 21st century critical thinking.
Let's move right into Section 3, friction and learning crises.
On paper, this expansion looked like a masterpiece, but adding an entirely new floor to a house while people are still living inside it, that's going to cause some serious friction. And it brings us to a really pivotal question. We built this bigger system to match global standards, but did the K-12 expansion actually solve the foundational problem of learning quality? Does building bigger always mean building better?
Well, implementing this dream came with some crushing demands. Take the higher education drop, for example. Because students were suddenly staying in high school for 2 extra years, universities faced a massive enrollment vacuum from 2016 to 2018. That meant severe funding drops for them. And down at the basic education level, the expansion just outpaced reality. It created chronic resource deficits. We're talking severe shortages of classrooms, specialized equipment, and trained teachers. Throw in the financial strain on low-income families who suddenly had to support 2 extra years of schooling, and you had some intense public backlash. It got so heated that the Supreme Court actually had to step in 2018 to uphold the program's constitutionality and basically keep the whole thing from collapsing.
That leads us to Section 4, the MATA tag course correction.
So K-12 survived, but man, the structural cracks were definitely showing. A major renovation was absolutely necessary.
The catalyst for this correction was an undeniable national learning crisis. Even with those extra years added, the 2013 curriculum was just wildly overcongested. Teachers and students were still rushing through thousands of required competencies, which ironically pushed everyone right back into superficial memorization. Trying to teach everything basically meant mastering nothing. And the harsh proof of this came when global PISA results ranked Philippine students at the very bottom internationally. This sparked a brand new vision, anchored by the tagline, Bansang Makabata, Batang Makabansa, a nation for children, children for the nation. It was specifically designed to explicitly combat learning poverty and poor literacy.
And that brings us to Matatag. It isn't just some catchy name, it's an acronym that serves as a literal statement of resilience. Let's break it down. MA stands for Makabansa, which is all about establishing a deep love for country and a unified national identity. TA is for Tao, prioritizing the actual well-being, mental health, and individual needs of the learner. The second TA stands for Tahas, meaning competent, securing those crucial 21st century skills and immediate job readiness. And the G, that stands for Matatag itself, representing the goal to build a robust, resilient system that can rapidly adapt to future global crises.
Moving on to Section 5, a decongested curriculum.
So how does that high-level vision actually translate into changes inside the classroom? The crucial point here is the number 70%. The Matata curriculum introduces a massive 70% reduction in curriculum competencies. I know, it sounds counterintuitive at first, teaching less to learn more? But this aggressive cut is specifically designed to prioritize deep understanding and actual mastery over that superficial, panicked rushing we saw before.
Let's look at how that 70% reduction actually plays out. Think of it like a funnel of decongestion. At the very foundation, there's a serious back-to-basics approach. Grade 1 is strictly narrowed down from a whole multitude of subjects to just 5 key foundational areas: language, reading, and literacy, mathematics, Makabansa, and GMRC, which is good manners and right conduct. And notice what's missing there? There's some very strategic delays. Science is completely paused until grade 3. MATPA, which is music, arts, physical education, and health. That's held off until grade 4, so kids can master reading and math first. Also, that independent mother tongue subject dropped. Meanwhile, up at the top of the system, senior high school is getting restructured too. They're taking a massive roster of 15 course subjects and slashing them down between 5 and 7. The goal? To finally carve out vital, dedicated room for actual job-ready technical training.
And finally, Section 6, the blueprint ahead. Decongesting an entire national education system is a monumental task. A change this huge just can't happen overnight. During the 2023-2024 school year, Matadagog went through a pilot phase across 35 schools to gather some really crucial teacher feedback. Right now, in the 2024-2025 school year, we're in Phase 1 activation. That's a full nationwide rollout for foundational tiers like kindergarten, grade 1, grade 4, and grade 7. Looking ahead to 2025 through 2027, an intermediate expansion will sweep across the remaining grades. It's all scheduled to culminate in the 2027-2028 school year, where we'll finally see the full K-10 system completion.
But let's be real, a blueprint is only as good as its execution. There are some gritty, complex implementation hurdles still standing in the way. Teachers have to entirely transition away from their legacy lesson plans and embrace highly interactive, student-centered learning. The system itself has to mass-train hundreds of thousands of educators on completely new holistic grading rubrics. And maybe the biggest hurdle? Administrators have to manage the continuous iteration of this massive national system without triggering the same friction we saw back in 2016.
Building a resilient national education system is never truly finished. It's a constant process. As the saying goes, iteration is the foundation of progress. From the urgent and honestly sometimes painful expansion of K-12 all the way to the strategic decongestion of Matatag, the architecture of Philippine education is still evolving. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If iteration truly is the foundation of progress, what exactly will the next generation's educational architecture look like when today's first graders finally graduate? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.